Tabletops will start after the following messages.
Are you looking for something comfortable to wear and keep your brain warm while playing tabletop games? Daily Dose of Yarn makes handmade, customized beanies for all of your style and comfort needs. She can even help you with a custom beanie to represent your favorite character. Check out Daily Dose of Yarn on Instagram and Etsy to order your new favorite beanie today.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tabletop. My name is Nick, your host, and today we have a really wonderful developer with us in studio. This is Brigitte Winter. She has actually co-founded Scripted Games, another group that we will be talking to in a few months. But we have her on today because she is developing and mainly responsible for the Psychic Trash Detectives game that you've been hearing advertisements about for the last few episodes. It's such an interesting game. I'm really excited to get down to talk to you about it, Brigitte. But some other things that you're known for is that you're a writer, photographer, and also the executive director of the Young Playwrights Theater in DC. So that's all super impressive. Welcome to Tabletop.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Yeah, I am too, because obviously you work with Nat, who has been on the pod and is one of the co-founders of Scripted Games as well. They are really wonderful when they were talking about interactive fiction with us, and I've just been excited to talk to someone who is also in that milieu of kind of intellectual design focus. So can you tell me a little bit about Psychic Trash Detectives? Because I've read through the sort of development copy that you're working out of right now. And it is, I think that the biggest thing that I saw right away was, wow, this is super thematic. Like this is like a big allegory, and I really love it. It's all about found family and taking things that society has cast off and making it important and valuable and wonderful. One of the things that you say in your kind of guide to starting a game, which I really love, is the biggest thing that you are playing for is the delight of the experience of all of the people who are playing, which I think is just really, really great. So can you tell me a little bit about how this kind of germ of an idea got stuck into your head and what caused you to want to create Psychic Trash Detectives?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, right, all of us have lived through the past 3 years. And can relate, I think, in some way to that experience of like feeling like a trash animal. And so I think this idea of raccoons and possums and trash animals has become part of our collective psyche, especially over the past couple of years. And I also, like, at the time of coming up with this game, was getting weirdly obsessed with podcasts about psychic detectives.
As just a genre in general, you're like, I really love it when these detectives have psychic powers.
Exactly. So, like, somehow those things got mixed up in my brain. So that's where the high concept came from of, like, what if there were trash animals that were psychic, and when they touched trash, they could solve mysteries. But I think some of the deeper things that you're talking about are my interest in game making and playing games, and so I think they likely will show up in any game that I create. I really enjoy games that are collaborative, games that celebrate that idea of chosen family, radical self-acceptance, games that really curate an experience that invites deep thematic exploration, but in a way that still empowers players to create the kind of story that they want to tell.
Yeah.
And so I tried to design an immersive game that, that kind of had all of those elements. It's like, how do we explore these serious themes and also be silly trash animals? And
yeah, it's so funny. One of my good friends, Mac, because on a high level, I really love TTRPGs because in my sort of in my heart of hearts, I feel like they are empathy tools, and they teach us how to care about other people and to live in other people's shoes and do self-exploration and a lot of different things that are really helpful and like emotionally important for humanity. But also they are games. And so my friend Mac has always been like, yeah, you should, when you're making a game or running a game, fun should be the most important thing, because if we're all just going to sit down and do a really heightened political thing or like emotional, like trauma dissection, then why aren't we just doing like interactive theater? Like, why aren't we writing a play, essentially? And so I've always thought that it's like so hard to balance those things, because a good game always has both of them, right? It has everyone is having fun, but also people can start crying or laughing or getting very upset at the table because they're just like, I'm just so invested in what's happening right now. And that is sort of where the magic is. So it's like a very interesting line to kind of sidle up to, especially in development, I bet.
Yeah, for sure. And I would agree that the best games for me, like in my experience, lean into that. It's really important to me to always acknowledge that all art making, which includes games, is political inherently.
Yeah.
And so if you are not starting from a place of awareness of that, then you can't be as intentional about what those experiences are, about, ensuring that the game design has human people with feelings in mind, has mechanics for people taking care of each other.
Yeah.
And really kind of creates that experience for folks. So I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and to that point, can you tell me a little bit about your history with TTRPGs? So, like, how did you get into them? Did you come to it and say, like, oh, I just really love making games. I'm approaching this from a designer, this medium. Or did you start playing, D&D or some other game, and then that sort of developed into wanting to be a designer and things like that?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I really did not come to TTRPGs until I was an adult. I'm kind of on the eve of my 40th birthday right now, and I didn't start playing games till I was in my 30s.
Yeah.
Which is kind of odd, actually, because when I was a kid, I really loved fantasy and science fiction and stories and imaginative play of all kinds. But certainly, didn't feel like TTRPGs were for me, didn't see a lot of women and queer people playing those games, didn't really relate to the kind of linear narratives and resolving conflict through combat that's inherent in the mechanics of so many of the games of that time when I was growing up. And so it really wasn't until I was an adult and started discovering indie designers and indie games that I found a space that was like, oh no, this is actually what kind of art I'm making in parallel to this, right?
Yeah, right.
Background in theater and in speculative fiction, and like stories that ask questions, and experimental forms. And so I think that I have been sort of on the fringes of this for a long time, and kind of landed in this space incidentally, and then ended up playing some games that I really, really enjoyed and connected with. And I've always been really interested in how to tell stories uniquely across media, like what type of medium is the best one to tell a particular kind of story. And there are so many like kinds of cool stories that can be told through games. And so that's what got me excited, but it really was not until recently.
Yeah, we just recently had on a designer named Fern Milton, who's just really, really amazing. She's like very, very thoughtful about this stuff as well. And she was saying how she was really kind of over the idea that all games have to be fit through the same shaped hole that is Dungeons and Dragons. So it's like sort of what she said, which was just so like kind of opened up my mind a lot, was that the board game market, which is a more linear, kind of more contained experience, has like hundreds of thousands of sub niches and genres and all that kind of like, it's all available for people to find the very specific experience that they want. And TTRPGs is a little different, where people try to put every type of story through some of the more popular versions, whether that be Powered by the Apocalypse or, D&D or Deadlands, things like that have quite a lot of like corporate backing behind them. They kind of, shove their story through it. And I've always thought it is so interesting because, like you said, stories they want to be told a specific way in a specific format. And that's why not everything is a TV show and not everything is a theater play and not anything is a musical even. Even within theater, there's a lot of subgenres in that too. So can you tell me a little bit about what you were going for when you were making Psychic Trash Detectives? Like, what kind of story are you looking to tell through this medium, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I knew that I wanted to explore the themes that you talked about before, so that I was really interested in telling a story, providing tools to tell a story that thematically invited players to explore those themes of found community and what it is to value people and objects that are discarded, radical self-acceptance, like loving your gross self and loving other people. And that I also was really interested in creating a game that was collaborative, that did not have a GM. That felt really, really important to me for the kind of story that I wanted to tell. And I wanted it to be a really immersive experience that invited people to have these kind of powerful thematic explorations and also have fun. And that offered a guidebook that invited people to come into this space and sort of play in this sandboxy way, but to really retain power over and ownership over the kind of story that they wanted to tell, the characters they're creating, the world that they're playing in, which actually really is what makes the idea of having the psychic visions, the mechanic that allows those to happen in the game, work. I really don't think that with a power dynamic that has a traditional GM, this would work.
Can you talk a little bit about that mechanic as well? When we were emailing back and forth, we talked a lot about ludonarrative harmony with design. And this mechanic really stood out to me too, because a lot of times people take dice or something very specific to create variance in how someone is allowed to tell a narrative. So essentially it gives and takes narrative power away from certain people and then puts it into other people's hands. But like you said, you've removed the GM, and you've also, this is a diceless game completely, and you've put in these other mechanics to kind of help shape and guide narrative. So can you talk a little bit about what you were going for there and like how these mechanics work?
Yes. So first of all, it is a game that is, as you said, diceless and played with garbage.
Which is just like a really great thing to say. Like, if that was on the box, I'd be like, yes, I'm picking this up.
It's tagline on our Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's so good.
Trash. I'm like, ugh. Yeah. But yes, that idea of ludonarrative harmony, it's a new concept for me, but I think, I'm also new to game design.
Yeah.
And so it came up in conversation in sort of the early stages of me working on this game, and just everything clicked for me because it made complete sense to me as a person who, as I said, didn't come up in this space, that of course the medium and the mechanics and the form would need to be a piece of the experience, would need to contribute to the story experience of the players, that something can't be immersive if the things you're literally doing in the game don't actually reinforce the world that you're creating, the themes that you're exploring, that if things feel off, then you sort of lose players and suddenly they're distanced from it and like telling a story, working against the mechanics instead of the mechanics carrying them forward. And so that was really important to me in the game design. And the first thing is the trash. So if I was going to play, if we were going to play a game about trash animals, why not include actual garbage? And so the garbage, so there are two ways that it is used. So there is real actual trash that the players bring to the table. It's like actually in a trash can that's turned over onto the table during the character creation phase of the game. And the trash is used as a divining tool, essentially, throughout the game. There are a number of little mini games that involve looking at the trash and touching the trash and interacting with it in a variety of ways. Like there's erasure poetry written on the trash. There's like the trash informing what kind of mystery you're even solving by doing kind of fill in the blank word puzzles, things of that nature. And so like trash is very present. So that's a sensory experience of being a trash animal and things being messy.
I should also mention for our audience who has not been able to read the game design sort of manual yet, but the trash is very clearly stated. Maybe don't go for compost, go for recyclables kind of thing. So because that was actually very present for me. I was like, oh man, this is going to be very gross. And then I was like, oh no, wait, this is all taken care of in here. It's great.
Yes. I mean, obviously you cannot control what a person is going to do, but it's like in any space, but definitely provided some invitations to be kind to yourselves and each other and be safe in your interaction with the trash and not be an edgelord about it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also written in there, which I really appreciated.
Yes, don't be an edgelord is actually part of the instruction.
One of the things that I really loved too was that immediately I started thinking about how I could take this game into my life as well. And if you know that as a group you're going to play this game coming up in the next week or something, as you're walking down the street, you could just sort of like start picking things up and kind of throwing them into a bag. And like there's sort of like a weird sort of collectionist mentality, but also how much awareness it kind of brings into just your daily life in preparation for this sort of thing, that I don't know if you were intending for that to happen, but immediately my brain was like, I wonder what weird stuff I could find on the street.
I mean, you're absolutely right. And that has been the experience when I have played the game, when I've played with other people, that it's like, I've been holding on to this can for the past couple of days.
Yeah.
Or like people, unfolding their pockets and stuff falling out and being like, look at this.
Yeah, I found this weird magazine that just says butts on the cover. Yes, and like, this is what I found this. I wanted to put in the trash can.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
there is, which is funny and fun and also like does connect to that awareness of the things that we literally discard, right? Leading up to the game and sort of what your own relationship with trash is. The game also asks that, like, as much as possible, you don't create trash with the game. So you're taking notes on trash, things that would otherwise have been thrown away.
Yeah.
The giant map that you're creating is meant to be a big piece of paper that could be newspaper or anything else that you find and that you're repurposing in this way. And so there is something to thinking about our relationship with the things we discard that isn't just in the setup of the game.
Well, it's a relationship with items, but it's also, like you were saying, going back to ludonarrative harmony as a concept, it is forcing us to interact with things that as society we have discarded or that we do not value, and find value, meaning, in stories within them, which is, very smart. Well done. Like, I was looking through it and I was like, wow, this is very intentional. I really like this. But it really brings core to your the thematic heart of this game is allowing you to take the trash of each other, kind of. It even says, like, take something that you are embarrassed by or something that has kind of you've been rejected for in the past, and like assign it to pieces of trash and things like that, so that you are sort of giving these feelings and these emotions that may not have really wide acceptance within our normal capitalist society, and you're able to kind of put it into a place where people are being careful and caring and, like you said, touching and handling the trash, which is, a part of all of us. So I thought, like, wow, just already this is like a very interesting look at sort of ludonarrative harmony, because it is immediately investing you in really valuing these parts that we throw away. So can you talk a little bit about how you took that and made it into the sort of the visions and all that come with it?
Yeah, so as I said, there's the real trash in the game, and there is also imagined trash that you create in the very first activity that you do together before you actually build the world or the characters or define the mystery that you're going to solve. All of the players are invited to privately reflect on a moment that they personally felt rejected or discarded. This is not something that they share out loud. It's a personal reflection. They can journal about it or just think about it. And then they reimagine that actual experience as a piece of trash. And then describe that and write that on a piece of scrap paper. So, if you're thinking about your breakup, you might be reimagining that as like the gross as banana peel, is like slimy and smells bad and is just
overripe.
Yes, overripe, exactly, and is now like a trap that somebody might flip on. And that's what you actually write on the paper, and then you fold that up so no one can see it, and it kind of becomes part of the gameplay where it's integrated with the other trash. And when you do the scenes later on as your characters and you're trying to solve the mystery, in each scene, the protagonist, who is sort of the person who by default is the lead character in the scene, that's just another mechanic. They pick another person's piece of trash that they created at the beginning of the game, and they open it at the end of the scene when the characters find that trash, and it's a surprise to everyone what it says. So they describe it, and that's the piece of trash that all of the animals then interact with, have their vision. And the visions themselves are what push the narrative forward, what help you to solve the mystery. And so this experience that is very real and personal, of feeling discarded, of feeling rejected, eventually becomes the magic that's at the center of the game that everybody can delight in, and lead you to solve the mystery. And then the visions themselves are all of these mini games that you can choose from that range anything from answering a question that somebody has about the mystery with everybody going around in a circle and saying only one word at a time until the sentence ends. So it leads to potential nonsense. It's ridiculous, but then you reflect on it in character on what that vision might mean. Come to consensus on that, and that's how you decide where to go next and how to move forward. So there's like that kind of mechanic. That's also where the writing erasure poetry on trash comes in. There's a playlist that everybody has created at the beginning of the game that's kind of playing in the background that you can put on shuffle, and the song that plays might inspire whatever the vision is. There's like drawing pictures with your eyes closed and then comparing them. So it's all of these weird collaborative, kind of improvised games that sort of take control away from everybody and put it into whatever collaboratively you come up with. And then the players have been spending so much time saying yes to each other and building the world that this magic really does tend to happen, where it feels like you are having a vision and it does completely make sense, even though, of course, it doesn't make sense. It drives them towards solving the mystery, which is just so wild. It's happened in literally every playtest. I've never seen it not work, which is crazy.
That is so exciting to hear. I'm the thing that I really love is that it's sort of like you've built a very elaborate and fun Rorschach test. Where everyone like looks at it and does these things and they're like, I don't know what just happened. It's like a Ouija board where everyone's like, it's moving.
Actually, it's recreating that experience, which is so fun.
Yeah, that it sounds amazing. I really want to talk a little bit more about the mystery element, but we'll be back just after these messages.
Hey, I'm Xavier, and I'm an old school Star Wars fan.
And I'm Chris. I'm a brand new Star Wars fan.
And we're the hosts of I'll Be Careful,
You'll Be Dead,
a podcast for fans, nerds, and even normal people too.
Together, we're journeying through the Star Wars universe.
The movies, the shows, the games, the novels, the comics, and everything in between.
And we're talking about all of them from the perspective of two different Star Wars fans.
I love Vader, and Chris loves Ahsoka.
How does that affect our opinion of the past, the present, and the future of Star Wars?
So check out I'll Be Careful,
You'll Be Dead
every Thursday, anywhere you listen to podcasts.
All right, and we're back with Brigitte Winter, the developer and designer of Psychic Trash Detectives. All right, we were talking a little bit before the break about how the magic kind of comes out of all of these sort of shared games and experiences. But I have to say, like, my mind was kind of blown that you really went and chose a mystery as a genre, because especially without a GM, that sounds chaotic to me. It just sounds like, how on earth can this work? You know what I mean? Because there has to be an answer at the end. That's kind of how mysteries work, is that there is a reveal and everyone goes, oh, and if you don't have somebody purposefully designing for that beforehand, it just like starts giving me anxiety. So can you talk a little bit about like how this works, how you get a fully functioning mystery by the end?
Yeah. So I think that really what the game guidebook is doing is taking all of the players together through the entire process of developing their own mystery and solving it.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's first of all a lot of investment in this world that everyone has created together, in the characters they've created, and in the story that they've told up to this point, that everybody wants the mystery to be solved. And so you're right that it is this kind of unique experience of where the game is telling them how they can build a mystery, but they ultimately are the ones who collaboratively decide what the mystery is, and how it is resolved, and the way that is done is, through these mini games and through this really imaginative collaborative play, as they're exploring all of the locations that they have built during the world building phase and deepening their understanding of this world. And I think there's something really fun about that. That like there is literally no one at the table who knows what the resolution to this mystery is until everybody comes to consensus on it. There's even a moment before the scenes begin when the players create their characters and are kind of finding their voices, where the characters, with the knowledge the characters have so far, share their theories of what might have happened.
Which is like a very smart way of saying like, all right, everyone do a story pitch and let's figure out the one that everyone likes the best.
But very often the things that they pitch are not what the resolution is that they decide on.
Well, I mean, every mystery has a red herring, right?
Exactly. I played a game once where there was a literal red herring. Of course, this game is set up to have.
Yeah. And
it was a non-player character that never told the truth.
Yeah.
But everybody would go to this fish for the herring's wisdom.
Yeah. And they'd like go and be like, I know that this herring has something to do with this mystery. And no, it's just a lying fish. Very, very good. And something that I want to sort of talk about as well is the environment that you're creating. Because like you said, there's music, there's these physical items, you are drawing, you are writing, you're all together. For me, this sounds like amazing because I have a background in theater, as do you, and like being immersed in something like this is something that I really, really enjoy. Can you talk a little bit about, for somebody like, I've experienced a lot of different players, and there are some players who are like very shy and very sort of like, they use mechanics to be part of something that they are otherwise feel like that they don't have as much of a voice in. Can you talk a little bit about how this game, with the environmental things and the actual mini games that you've built in, how that is able to kind of involve people who maybe are a little bit more on the shy side, or somebody who doesn't, have a background in improv or theater?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that the guidebook, as I said, is intended to curate this experience for everyone, and the guidebook is also at the table. And so a person who is shyer, who has never been a GM and doesn't want to talk in character and things like that, there are so many ways to still delight in the story if you trust what the game is telling you to do. And so it's like it's in phases. Each phase describes sort of the container that you get to play in, and there are so many different ways to interact with the game itself that are built into the game. Sometimes you're writing things, sometimes you're saying them out loud, sometimes you're describing what happens, sometimes you're drawing pictures, right? There are all of these different access points that actually, I think, make it accessible to a number of different kinds of players. Really what you need to bring to the game is a desire to play. And it's so much about, as I said, acceptance, of yourself and others, and it being okay to be silly. It's like built into the core mechanics of the game. And so I think that in that way, it's a really supportive environment potentially for someone who up to this point might have been terrified by everything that I was saying. Just the game book itself really holds you, and then the activities themselves really create this kind of supportive environment to play and to experiment and to take risks.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, reading through it, you have said multiple times now that you're new to design, but when I was reading through it, it does all feel like very cohesive, like there is sort of a philosophy behind it as well. You've said before that you wanted to thematically kind of explore certain things, but can you talk a little bit about your design philosophy? Did you approach it with just, like you said, I like psychic detectives, I like trash, and I want to combine those things? Like how did that sort of, how have you now kind of coming to the other end of your design phase here? How do you think your design philosophy has been coalescing in this project?
Mm-hmm. I mean, as I said before, there were things that I knew that I wanted to incorporate into the design of this game, that I knew that I wanted to find a way to make it collaborative. I wanted it to be sandboxy. I wanted players to be empowered as creators and sort of owners of the narrative and world and tone of the experience. And so I was really interested in this concept of ludonarrative harmony and how the game mechanics could support that. And so I really think that was it. That's what led me in the direction of creating the game that you read and the game that people will read when they hopefully buy the book. But yeah,
it's just because it's so interesting to me, because coming from a background in theater, there's, and I'm sure you know this too, this might be a little inside baseball for non-theater folk listening, but there's sort of a struggle, if you will, between the old sort of like very stiff way of how to appreciate theater, of you go into a dark room, you sit down and you're very quiet for an hour and a half, and then you clap politely and you get up and leave. Yeah. And there's sort of like another side to that where it's a little bit more about trying to create an experience that even the act of watching is part of the experience. And I feel like this game it sort of feels to me very much like the second, where by playing it and the way that you interface with it, you are actually experiencing the thematic parts that you like, the themes that you are trying to explore as a designer. And you are kind of just by, it's like one of those particles that by observing it changes how they act. It's like just by kind of like being part of this game and interfacing with the mechanics that you've created, it feels like it's going to push people in a very specific direction and create a very specific experience. Can you talk a little bit about when you are sitting down at the table, how that has been happening? So you said you've had some play tests where people have always been finding this magic and it's been super exciting. Can you talk a little bit about that play testing process and some of the things that you found as you've been going through it?
Yeah, I'm like still sort of vibing on what you're saying even before the question. Yeah. Because you were really speaking so much to what I love about theater and what I love about games and what I think we have in common, which makes complete sense to me, I think, as a person with a background in theater, and sounds like something that you connect to as well, that I really did try to incorporate into the experience of this game. I really love the way that the TTRPGs, especially something like this, can be theater, but it's like theater where the players are the playwrights, the actors, and the audience. Right? And it's this contained experience where everyone's having all of those experiences at the same time, which really changes the power dynamics of what a traditional theater experience would be and what it means to be an audience member who's also an active participant in the play.
There was actually a whole like theater movement in Germany, I think in like the maybe the early 1900s, that the theater company would only allow people who had some hand in creating the piece only they were allowed to actually see the piece. And so it kind of feels like that in a way, where everybody is like part of the creation, but they're also the audience for the thing that they're doing. Yeah. And in that way, it's like the most niche creation that you can make, because it's for very specific people by very specific people.
Yeah. And is this ephemeral experience that, you build together, and it exists in that space for, one night or the series of nights that you are making this story, and then disappears and like belongs just to you. So I do think that's like so fascinating to me. But I guess to get back to your actual question, I would say that I have seen that happen, like that experience of what it is to be sort of the creators and the consumers at the same time of a piece of fiction. And it's been really cool. I'm trying to think of like some interesting things that I discovered. So I think that my actual favorite part of the game, which we haven't talked about yet, is the character creation. And I had hoped that it would work the way that I wanted it to. Really discovered that it's actually a lot at the heart of how the players ultimately end up building relationships and interacting with each other, and sort of the kind ethos at the center of the game.
Can you walk us through a little bit of what that character creation is? Because I've read it a couple times, but I would love to hear it from you as well. I mean, even when I was reading through it, I thought it was really fascinating by the graph you have in there. Not really graph, but it's like 4 columns of the different types of animals to really give you a feel for the world as you're going through it as well. So walk us through creating a character in Psychic Trash Detectives.
Yeah, so the piece that you're talking about, which comes early on and is kind of connected to the world building and sort of understanding, just vaguely, it's a vague suggestion of the kind of world that you're playing in, which I think still leaves some space for people to play within it and build around it. The idea is that there are different kinds of animals that all share space in this world. And trash in this world is psychic, like has this psychic energy. And trash, especially because it's been discarded, is aching with these deep psychic wounds and is, particularly potent. And all animals can sense this psychic energy. But most animals try to distance themselves from it. Except for these trash animals who just love it, just revel in this weird energy. And that's what, draws them to the site. They kind of stumble upon these mysteries because when they touch trash, they will experience these psychometric visions of everything the trash is interact with and touch.
Oh God, we gotta get go outside and touch trash to trend on Twitter instead of touching grass.
Everybody should touch trash. And then there are like animals that have kind of rejected that and are like the purists who live in the woods and look down on those animals. There are animals that are pets essentially, and are these kind of cozy animals who live with humans. And there are farm animals that have been subjugated and are dealing with all kinds of stuff having to do with their relationship with humans. But anyway, that's that piece. When we get to the actual creation of the trash animal, there's this invitation to pick any animal, right? Because any animal can be a trash animal because all animals can sense this psychic energy. We don't want to do bioessentialism in this, like a flamingo can be a trash animal.
Immediately I was like, I just want to play a giraffe that's like a trash giraffe.
Exactly, a trash giraffe. So you pick your animal, you pick some adjectives. There's a pick list once again, so that folks who are not coming with a ton of ideas have some places to start. So you could be a cozy detective, you could be a celebrity detective, sort of whatever. And the thing that I love, which is the thing I was talking about that happens, that people just like come up with the wildest things, is you have to pick what your grossest trait is as a child. And when you introduce your animal to the rest of the group, you share all that information about what kind of animal you are, how, what kind of detective you are, but then what your grossest trait is. And the other animal's response is that everybody shares why that gross trait is their favorite thing about you.
Which is very fun. I love that.
Love fest of people sharing like these weird reasons why somebody pooping in public is actually part of how confident they are, and really makes everybody else feel like they can poop in public too. It's hilarious, and then also just so sweet.
Yeah.
And
it does the hard thing in a TTRPG, which is how come these people are traveling together, or why is this group together? And by doing this in this way, you're like, these people all love each other. Look, this one loves that this one has like a weird nose picking habit whenever they are thinking really hard.
Yes. Your garbage breath is, drives everyone else away. And I'm a loner, and that really helps me feel at home.
Yeah. I get anxious in crowds, so when you drive everyone away, it's helpful.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
And we're starting to kind of come to the end here, but I have one that's like a little bit, I guess it's a little bit broader, and it can be just strictly in world of like, what are these literally, or maybe a little bit more thematically. But when you were developing this game, how do the preconceived notions of being like a trash animal, and I'm using air quotes there, influence the game? So what themes do you want people to sort of explore, and as some of, nature's more gross and trashy creatures?
Yeah. So, I think that sort of, as we talked about before, it was really important to me that this be a game where players are really exploring what it feels like, what it is to be, what it is to value beings that have been discarded, and to find found family within that, to find self-love, to really be part of joyful community outside of a society that has pushed you away. And I think that is a really relatable experience to many of us.
Yeah.
And trash animals in this game are a great vehicle for exploring that in a loving, joyful, silly way, but something that is really quite serious.
Yeah, the thing that I really love about this game, and I'm really excited to play with friends and enemies alike. I just, it feels, and this is not in any way a bad thing, it is like so queer, right? Like, as someone who is also queer, it's like, wow, this is all about taking the things that society rejects or doesn't think is like mainstream, and taking that and treasuring it and sharing it with other people who also feel that way, and finding this collection of people who will value each other and will come together to do these great things, and in the game that solve a really cool mystery. Yeah. So it just feels like, especially right now in our moment, it just feels as though, yes, it's going to be just a blast in like a weird evening where we dump trash on a table and have this like fun little game. But it also, it feels really important in a way of really standing up and saying, no, this is valuable in a time where that is not so much the mainstream view of things. So I just want to also say I really appreciate the thought and care that went into that portion of it as well. It just is very, very cool. I very much appreciated it. And yeah, and perhaps the last question, and the most important question, is what has been your favorite piece of trash that you've either seen or seen someone create, or in playtests, or what has been the thing that stands out to you where you were like, that was so weird that came into this game, but it was amazing?
Oh gosh, let me think. That is so tough. So I think it really connects more to the character than the actual object, but the object is so great in relationship with the character. Yeah. A friend of mine, her name is Anne-Marie, created this really fantastic character that was a fruit fly. and was really playing with this idea of like fruit flies having different lifespan, right, than the other animals, and having like different thinking and culture built around that, where they pass knowledge, fruit fly to fruit fly. So like by the end of the game, it might be a different fruit fly.
It's like different, but also like hive mind in a little way.
Exactly. And and she brought to the table this like perfectly peeled, I think it was a clementine peel. And the fruit fly's name was Mango, and so she like used the peel as her name tag and wrote Mango on it. I think there's actually a picture of it on the Kickstarter because I loved it so much. But yeah,
amazing.
It was such a good character.
Well, thank you so much, Brigitte, for coming on and talking about Psychic Trash Detectives. For everyone else, this episode is going to come out post the Kickstarter, but do not worry, it was super successful. I'm sure at the time of this recording, we're just under $10,000 in that Kickstarter, but I'm sure by the time this episode comes out, it's gonna, get way past that. So if you want to be a part of Psychic Trash Detectives, or you want to be involved or buying it, any of those things, where can we send folks to start kind of getting their little trashy paws on this game?
Yeah, so we're going to have pre-orders available right after the campaign closes, because as you said, it's been such a wild and unexpected and amazing success that we are definitely making this game. We're making a lot of them. And so we're using BackerKit, and so there will be pre-orders available on BackerKit. It probably makes the most sense to go to our website at scriptedgames.com, because that'll have a link to where you can pre-order this game and the game Ball of the Wild, which is by Matt Mesner, that we released right before this one. That is a drag game about animals dressing up as other animals. We are all about animals. I don't think any of us know how to write games that aren't queer, which I delight in. You can get both of those games through the website at scriptedgames.com.
And that link will be in the bio as well, or in the show notes, I should say. If people are interested, just head on down. It should be clickable. You can click it and head right to Scripted Games' website and start buying these wonderful games. Brigitte, I mean, this was a great conversation. Thanks so much for coming on. I'm going to have all of the Scripted folks on fairly soon, I think in a couple months. But of course, our door's always open if you are wanting to come back and talk games or have a new design flash of genius. Please come back. We would love to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hello there, I'm Calvin Piper, host and DM of the Wild Magic School Bus, the most unprofessional D&D podcast you'll ever hear.
Excuse me, how can you call us unprofessional?
1 second, Ohiana, I'm recording a trailer. Join me and my friends each Monday as we travel through the fantasy world of Talrun Mall, a land divided between magic and man.
Hold on, we just gonna exclude lizards from that?
And robotic sidekicks that were once lizards?
Oddly specific, but sure, we can include them. So come along for the ride on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your shows, and listen to D&D the way it was meant to be endured. All right, everyone on the bus.
All right.
Let's gotta have a window seat. He's gonna get sick.
Hey, Zeph, what's a podcast?
Tabini, a podcast is when a group of people love each other very, very much and they want to...